Good morning, parents and caregivers. Thank you for joining our breakout session at this wonderful conference today. We are joined today by the mathematics and literacy team. My name is Denise Humphreys, and I'm System Superintendent of Student Achievement and Program. And joining us today is Lisa Dilworth, System Superintendent of Student Achievement, Mathematics, Science, STEM, and the Arts. Also joining us today is Centrally Assigned Principal Murphy Sallow. One of her responsibilities is the arts and the other is mathematics. Also joining us today is Centrally Assigned Principal Lisa Teodosio. She is the Centrally Assigned Principal for Early Years and Literacy. Today, we also have with us Leslyn Ferguson, Program Coordinator for the Early Years, and Program Coordinator Jason Toe for Mathematics as one of his responsibilities. We are happy to be here today, and we will start with a land acknowledgement. The land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, and the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. I also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaties, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I think it's me now. Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Toe. I'm the program coordinator for mathematics. And for this first part, we wanted to have everybody be involved in a little bit of math, just to help us with illustrating some of the new aspects of the math curriculum. So, I'm going to share with you a couple questions, and there are going to be a couple ways for you to interact. There is a chat button that you'll see at the bottom of your screen. I will ask you how you got a math problem, and then so you can share at the through the chat your thinking, or when it's appropriate, you can, I believe, unmute your mic, and you can also share how you thought about some of these math problems. So we're going to do what is called a number talk, and this is a routine that classroom teachers are doing in classrooms across the TDSB, and this is also something that you as a parent or caregiver can also do with your children. So I'm going to ask you to do a little bit of math. Um, and once you see the question on the screen, I'm going to ask you not to answer right away, but I will give you a signal for when you can provide an answer, either in the chat or if you unmute your mic. Okay, so no answers right yet. I'm going to share with you now, and then I'll let you know when you can provide an answer. So that's the first question. Okay. I'll count us down so that you can share an answer in the chat if you'd like. So throw something in the chat in 3, 2, 1. All right. Thanks, folks. I see some answers here. Can someone that provided an answer share how you got 61? So there's folks like Zena, Gilbert, or Diana. Oh, Diana. She threw something in the chat there. So you turned 34 and the 27, and then you split them into their place values. So you have 30 and 20. That probably makes 50. And then you added the 7 and the 4 to get 61. Thank you, Diana. Is there anybody else that'd like to share a little bit about how they got to 61?
Can
Oh,
I
yeah.
unmute and speak?
Oh, yeah, please.
The old method. 7 plus 4 equals 11. Carry the one. 5 plus 1 is 6, 61.
Okay, great. Did you stack the numbers? Like, did you do
I
it on
stacked the
paper?
numbers.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you. So, I mean, it's a similar sort of a thing where you did the 7 and the 4 to make 11, and then that one that you're carrying is really a 10, and then you're adding the 30 and the 20 and the 10 to get 60. Right. Same here with stacking the numbers. Okay. So there's also another strategy as well that I haven't seen anybody try. You can start with, let's say, 27. Then you can add 30 to get 57. And then you can jump another 4 to get 61. So there's different ways of thinking about different strategies that we can have. That one is kind of thinking about what we call a number line. It's sort of like an arrow to go from 0 to however many numbers, and just jumping numbers to get us to an answer. All right. It's okay if it's an old school thing. We like old school too sometimes here. Okay, I'm going to share with you another question. We're going to do a similar routine. So I'm going to share with you a question. You're going to do a little bit of math, and then I'll give you a countdown for you to provide your answer. Okay. So, what is 15% of 250? I'll give us a little bit of think time, and then I'll ask you to provide an answer. All right, everybody. I'm going to give us a countdown in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you can share your answer in the chat or how you got the answer, that would be fantastic. Oh, okay, awesome. So we've got some. Can anybody who provided an answer share how you got your answer? Oh, all right. Okay. 250 times 0.15 gets you 37.5. Okay, Denise gave 10% of 250 and then also half of that. Anybody else have another strategy? So I'll share with you that is typically, yeah, okay, I see a thumbs up there, that most people will find 10% of 250, so that's 25. And then for the other 5%, they'll take half of that 25, which is just 12 and a half or 12.5, and then put the 25 and the 12.5 together to make 37.5. So these are two questions that align to mental math expectations in the Ontario curriculum that was released in 2020. The first question aligns with a grade 3 question around adding and subtracting whole numbers in your head. So these are things that we're asking children to do without having to write it down on paper and pencil. We want them to be able to be flexible with numbers, to think about them in order to add or subtract. And the next question is a grade 6 expectation, looking at percentages of 1, 5, 10, 15, 25, and 50, and calculate the percentages of whole numbers. So these are really important components of the Ontario math curriculum. And these are things that, like I said, you as parents and caregivers can also do with your children through a routine, such as a number talk. So just want to highlight some of the components of a number talk. You're providing a thoughtful question and some time to think, like I just did. This could be a question in context as you're maybe doing, activities at home, like household activities with your children, like cooking, or if you're going grocery shopping. Provide a chance for your child or your children to answer and to share their strategy. Maybe ask for another strategy. and then make connections between the strategies if you can make sense of what they're trying to do. And then finally, wanting to build strong, confident math learners. We want you, if you can, to praise their effort and their thinking. All right, I really appreciate you playing along with me today. I'm going to pass it over to Lisa Dilworth, one of our system superintendents, to talk more about our Math Achievement Action Plan.
Thank you very much, Jason. I did notice that one of our participants has a question. What we're going to do is we will be taking questions at the end of both presentations. So, Mr. Chen, don't worry, we will answer that question shortly.
Yeah.
I'm just going to give a quick background as to why we're doing math the way we are now and some of the pieces behind that. So next slide, please. So the Math Achievement Action Plan, the TDSB Math Achievement Action Plan, actually has its roots in the Better Schools and Student Outcomes Act that came into being in June of 2023, Bill 98. Bill 98 has quite far-reaching powers and has actually even been used to alter pieces of the Education Act that has not been changed in a number of years. From that also came a ministry-wide student achievement action plan with 11 key performance indicators, or KPIs as we like to call them, look-fors, that the ministry expects from every school board. 2 of those relate to mathematics, 1 being EQAO, and 2 being looking at the number of students in grade 11 and 12 that are taking math and science-oriented courses. Over the last 18 months, our school board has engaged in extensive consultation and work to create our own TDSB multi-year strategic plan, which is in effect from 2024 to 2028. As you can see in the center of the screen there, it is built on a foundation of equity and on implementing truth and reconciliation and the calls to action. It consists of 4 areas of focus: belong, achieve, thrive, and revitalize. The Math Achievement Action Plan, which is the next rectangular image, actually is nestled within largely achieve, but it has its roots also in students belonging and feeling like they like and feel comfortable in a math classroom, and also in thrive, because thrive talks a lot about pathways and how we're continuing to engage students in mathematics throughout the years. So the Mathematics Achievement Action Plan is the same in many respects in terms of the 3 pillars you see there for every school board. That's mandated that we have those 3 pieces. So the first one is implementing the curriculum. Second is strengthening mathematics content knowledge for educators. And the 4th one is knowing the mathematics learner. Where we're able to differentiate is we, as a board, use our context and our data to come up with our specific look-fors. We currently have a number of key performance indicators, some of which are mandated by the ministry that we send to them on top of those 11 that I talked about earlier. And we have some that we use internally to guide our performance and our next steps. Next slide, please. So just to give you the context of the work we're doing, so we have, last year we had 148 math partnership grades in 123 schools. So what that means is those are grades in schools that were in the bottom 20% of EQAO. And so it is based on the 2021, or 2021, 2022, it should say EQAO. This year, we've revised some of the schools, and we are currently up to 125 schools, so 2 additional schools, and we have 157 grades. So the reason those numbers are different is that some schools have both grade 3 and grade 6. So when we talk about grades, they're counted twice. The ministry has afforded us funding, and this is where the funding largely is spent, for 24.5 math learning partners or coaches, and they're deployed into all the schools. So they work with teachers to help them improve practice, to utilize student data, and to work on effective high-impact strategies in the classroom. Often, actually, we can just move to the next slide. Our big picture plan is high quality embedded professional learning for our educators. So getting back to the math learning partners or coaches, they actually help to create these job embedded central sessions, which are about 4 days in length. And then they are working in the schools of our focus schools, the math learning partnership schools, to ensure implementation of the practice from those high quality research informed strategies that we've been teaching centrally. We're also looking at culturally responsive and identity affirming mathematics practice, because we know mathematics is not neutral. We're also focusing on high yield instructional strategies, such as the use of digital tools and representations to support and engage all of our learners. And you'll hear a bit more about that. We are really rooting our work in data collection and tying that to school improvement planning. And we are also providing learning for both the school and system leaders, because in many cases, they are helping to implement and monitor the progress of these initiatives. And lastly, but certainly probably most importantly, we're working to engage our family and communities in doing math with their students and also understanding what we're doing. I'm now going to pass it on to centrally assigned principal, Murphy Sallow.
Thank you, Superintendent Dilworth. So as parents, you may or may not be aware that in the last few years, there have been some updates to the Ontario math curriculum. And if you are interested in learning more about what it is that students learn in the different grade levels, the province does have a curriculum website that you can go to. And it's this update to the curriculum is part of a 4-year strategy by the province to really look at helping students with math problems and with a lens of thinking about how we prepare our students for their futures and jobs. And so if you're ever curious about what your children are doing in their grade level, in their grades, you can go to the website, you'll see what the expectations are, and there's a lot of links in there that are really meant for teachers, but as a parent, you might find them interesting because there's links to all sorts of example activities for some of the concepts. So you may want to check that out as a parent if you haven't already done so. Next slide, please. In addition, the province has a parent information part of the site as well around curriculum and resources. So in addition to looking at the curriculum, there's all sorts of little video clips and pieces of information that will help parents understand a little bit more about what their children are learning in schools. Next slide, please. In addition, the Toronto District School Board, our math department, has a website as well for families and caregivers. And there's a lot of links on that website to all sorts of resources. And even you experienced a number talk with Jason Toe at the beginning. And so that's an example of some kinds of one of the things that you can find some examples of on our website as well in terms of that work. And you'll notice that there's a link there to something called virtual math resources. So next slide, please. So that takes you to a page that really lists some of the virtual math tools that are being used in our schools. And some of them are ones you may see your children working with some of these tools. And again, you might want to connect with your child's classroom teacher to find out a little bit more about which of these tools they are using depending on their grade level. So for example, things like Braining Camp, when you see students using math manipulatives like the rods and all these different objects to help them understand math, this is a virtual version of that. Then there's some other tools here that might have some activities that the teacher might assign within them, like Knowledge Hook or Mathology, which might have some activities that also connect stories to math. So there's a whole range of things. The older students might be using Desmos around, again, it's a way for you to work with tables and graphs and all sorts of things. So there's a lot of different tools that the children might be using. And the ministry has really asked boards to work on increasing our access to these tools with your students. So please connect with your teacher and your school principal about which tools your particular school is currently using, because they do have access to quite a range of different ones. Next slide, please. Another link that we have on our TDSB math site is also more information about TVO Learn Mathify. So if you didn't know about this already, there's free one-on-one online math tutors that are available through TVO Mathify. And basically, if you go to mathify.tvolearn.com, your child will need to just know what their Ontario education number is, which is on the top of the report card. So not the TDSB number, but the provincial number. And you can create a login and you can have a live extra help from Ontario certified teachers through this website. Next slide, please. So what's on TVO Mathify? It's homework help. It's a way that your children can prepare for math tests. They have tools where you can choose to opt into speaking to the tutor or typing. They also are able to interact with sort of a sketch, visually sketch out math problems on a screen. So it's something that is another resource that's available for parents. So hopefully those are things that are of interest to you. And now I'm going to pass it on to our literacy department. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Murphy and the math team. So today we also have an opportunity to give you a brief overview of our work in the literacy department and how it connects to the Ontario curriculum. Next slide, please. Firstly, it's important to note that literacy is an essential skill for success. It affects all academic achievement and is associated with social, emotional, economic, and physical health. In TDSB, we have a vision for the literate learner, and we have vision and goals that are aligned to the new language curriculum. Next slide, please. Like math, the ministry has updated and revised curriculums that are used by the students across Ontario. The Ontario curriculum, grade 1 to 8, language, was revised in 2023. It outlines the knowledge skills required for effective reading and writing, listening and speaking, so that students can succeed at school and beyond. The curriculum has been revised partly in response to recommendations outlined in the Ontario Human Rights Commissioner's Right to Read Public Inquiry Report. It contains a focus on foundational knowledge and skills, transferable skills, digital media literacy, and that's where students develop and apply digital media literacy knowledge and skills to support their learning, such as understanding how online media is used to communicate and influence audiences. They also learn to navigate online environments with appropriate permissions while they're managing data, security, and privacy. Students also learn how to use digital and media tools to evaluate information and demonstrate their learning. Along with this, the curriculum includes applications, connections, and contributions. And this is where students apply language and literacy skills in various contexts and make connections to the contributions of a diversity of voices, experiences, perspectives, including those of First Nations, Métis, Inuit individuals, communities, groups, and nations. Next slide, please. TDSB has launched its literacy strategy. Through the literacy strategy, the TDSB aims to cultivate and inspire curious and innovative learners and citizens who use their critical thinking skills as readers, writers, and communicators. This will allow learners to engage critically in the world around them and thrive in evolving, diverse, complex global contexts. Next slide, please. Literacy is globally recognized as a fundamental human right. It's the gateway to early and lifelong learning, belonging, equity, and excellence. A student's literacy proficiency develops over time and has many layers of influence, including early exposure to conversations, books, prints, and access to technology. Opportunity for shared reading within families and various early years programs is important for our literate learners. Children and youth are individuals who must be seen and heard. They have the right to have their voices heard in all matters that affect them. Literacy is the language of learning. Next slide, please. I will now turn it over to our centrally assigned principal, Lisa Teodosio.
Thank you, Denise. Good morning, everyone. So there are several documents that guide our work, the multi-year strategic plan being one of them. It serves as a roadmap towards realizing the collective vision for the students and staff served by the TDSB and is a reflection of the rich perspectives, ideas, and goals of TDSB communities. Our mission in creating the multi-year strategic plan was to enable all students to reach high levels of achievement and well-being and to acquire the knowledge, skills, and values they need to become responsible, contributing members of a democratic and sustainable society. Alongside that, another pivotal document that guides our work is the Combating Hate and Racism Student Learning Strategy. Hate and racism in any form has no place in schools and workplaces, and we are committed to interrupting and confronting racism, discrimination, and hate in all of its forms when we see or hear it. The Student Learning Strategy for Combating Hate and Racism is a proactive and student-centered approach to creating respectful and culturally safe learning environments for all students. Staff and students deserve to learn and work in an environment that is safe, inclusive, and welcoming, and we as a collective community must do everything in our ability to ensure that this happens. Next slide, please. The TDSB frameworks for early reading and later literacy also guide our work. They outline the critical components of effective literacy instruction. They are clear connections to the principles, instructional approaches, and skills connected to the language and English curricula. The purpose of these frameworks is to set structures of expectations so that equity of service and commitment to the multi-year strategic plan is shared across the system for all students. These frameworks are based on what we have learned over the years in our partnership with speech and language pathologists, as well as through consultations with various TDSB departments. Next slide, please. Listed on the screen are the key milestones related to the development of the TDSB literacy strategy, including the launch of the multi-year strategic plan. You can see that our work began quite some time ago, initially in September of 2019, where the board created one of the first of its kind, an intervention team to support reading development across the system. Next slide, please. The TDSB literacy strategy is designed to support all students, regardless of their identity, in creating, communicating, reading, writing, and thinking critically with confidence, fluency, and enjoyment, regardless of the language of instruction. The TDSB aims to cultivate and inspire curious and innovative learners and citizens who use their critical thinking skills as readers, writers, and communicators to engage critically in the world around them and thrive in this evolving, diverse, and complex global context. The TDSB literacy strategy includes a framework that identifies the goals, key actions, and key monitoring indicators related to the learner, educator, and learning environment. These goals and actions will be implemented across the system in both elementary and secondary schools. The goals identified in the strategy are grounded in the following: the student achievement plan, the achievement pillar of the multi-year strategic plan, key big ideas from the Ontario Kindergarten Program and the Ontario Language Curricula grades 1 to 9, and the vision of the literate learner. The goals are broad in nature and will help ensure the strategy remains focused. The key measurement indicators demonstrate the approaches to not only measuring the actions in relation to the goals, but also serves as a means to support system accountability. The key measurement indicators align with the Ministry of Education's Student Achievement Plan indicators and include local qualitative indicators that will show impact at the school level. The TDSB is committed to monitoring literacy achievement and ensuring educators are better equipped to meet the literacy needs of all students. Layered assessments and pedagogical documentation that highlight student thinking and wondering and honor student family perspectives will be used to inform subsequent learning opportunities, teaching, and tiered intervention. Next slide, please. As parents and caregivers, how can you support your child's literacy development at home? We suggest families make literacy learning fun by making it a game or embedding it in everyday family life. Next slide, please. Here is an example of a simple game. Provide your child with some letters. They can be magnetic letters, letters written on paper, and ask them, how many words can you create using only these letters within a certain time frame? So let's try this together. We're going to give you 1 minute. Please look at the 9 letters provided, and in the chat, in 1 minute, and I'll count down so you know when to start. How many words can you create using only the letters on the screen? So 3, 2, 1, go. Everyone seems to be shy to make some words. Okay, well, I'm going to get us started. Oh, there we go. Thank you. 17 seconds left. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you very much for participating. So when we look over some of the words that we put in here, we can see that we have tapped into a number of different skill sets when we're trying to create these words limited to a certain number of letters. In this very simple game, by using letters, you can practice and strengthen your child's letter sound understanding, letter recognition, sight word recognition, and ability to fluidly swap a letter out of a word to create a new known word, such as in the case with cat, mat, sat. These foundational language skills are critical to reading skill development, and yet this method is fun and engaging. Now I will pass it, I'm sorry, next slide, please. Thank you. Now I will pass it over to Leslyn, who will further explore literacy activities that you can engage at home with your child.
Thank you, Lisa. If I can have the next slide, please. So when we're talking about reading at home, if I can have you hit the slide again, Jason, so the text is showing. Thank you. As a family, we want to be aiming for about 15 minutes a day. And we wanted to make it consistent in a way that actually works for your family. So whether that be right after school, or after dinner, or before bedtime, try to choose a time that actually works for your family. When we're reading, we want to be thinking about asking questions about what we're reading. So questions like, what happened in the story? What do you think will happen next? How did you know that? What was your favorite part? So more so getting our students, our learners to be thinking about thinking questions that are related to the text that they're reading. We want to ensure that we're including reading skills that are using digital technology. So even though it may be on an iPad, it is still considered reading. And so we want to be taking advantage of the number of ebooks that are out there, and we'll have an opportunity to show you where you can find more of those types of information, digital technology with our e-library and our TSB virtual library. We also want to be sure that we're offering a variety of different forms of text. So our students can be reading both fiction as well as nonfiction books. So that could be information books. So thinking about your child's interest, if it's an interest in into airports or into transportation, we can also be reading texts about those. We want to be thinking about texts that are also reflective of your child's racial and cultural identity. Next slide, please. So there's a couple of benefits. Jason, if I can have you just hit the slide so all of the text is showing, thank you. There are a couple of benefits to reading out loud to your child in terms of things that are beneficial would be their listening skills. This is also an opportunity to work on vocabulary. So it's an opportunity for our students and to learn new words. If you see a new word in a book, come up with a child-friendly definition. Talk about related words. Talk about words that may be the opposite to that. So for example, how would you describe the word enormous? How about that word gobbling? So this is an opportunity for your child to find interesting words in the text that they're using. It's also an opportunity to work on comprehension in terms of making sure that they are understanding what they are reading, but also building their background knowledge. So we want to be able to choose books that children can relate to, as well as are interested in. And we also want to choose books that children can contribute their own knowledge. So for example, if they love Pokemon, consider a book about their favorite Pokemon character. While reading, we can be working on their social emotional development as well as their reading fluency. So by hearing a fluent reader in terms of someone who's reading very smoothly and with expression, this is also a great way to model that for your child. Next slide, please. Often when we're reading with our children, you may come across words that are unfamiliar to them. So we want to think about how we approach those types of words. What are the strategies we can use when we're looking at unfamiliar words? So one of them is thinking about sounding it out. Show your child how they can sound out words by breaking it up into smaller parts. So for example, if the word was cat, I could be looking at the individual sounds, k, and then cat. 2, I could be breaking up those words into smaller parts. So again, I'm going to be looking at chunks of that word. So example, if my word was basketball, I could be sounding out as basketball. Lastly, I can read it slowly and have your child repeat after you. So point to each of the sounds as you read the sentence, and then ask your child to repeat it after you. This will encourage them to pay attention to each individual part that makes up the word. So from beginning to end. Next slide, please. If your child is reluctant to read, I think it's really important that we are giving them some choice in terms of what it is that they'd like to read. We want to make sure that we're making reading fun and not a chore. We want to be adding games or hands-on activities to make it more engaging. So similar to the game that Lisa was showing us before, if there's a way of gamifying the activities that you're doing associated with the reading, that's another way of increasing the level of engagement. We also want to be able to tie reading to writing. So we want to encourage all kinds of writing, whether it be writing a letter to a relative, writing a thank you card, writing about a trip they did on the weekend. We also want to be having your child be able to see you reading as well, in terms of you being a model and demonstrating your reading skills, and looking for those opportunities to read with your child every chance that you get. Next slide, please. We also want to be thinking about, again, building that vocabulary as well as teaching new words in everyday settings. So an example of that can be thinking about when your child is doing household chores or activities. So for example, we have sorting laundry. What new words can we teach and model for children as we sort laundry with them? So we could sort them by nouns, by verbs, by concepts. So concepts of like empty, full, dry, wet. Adding describing words would also be another way of engaging the literacy skills in these activities, and being able to switch roles and follow your child's instruction. Let your child be the teacher and you follow their instruction. Next slide, please. Here's another example of how you can build those oral language skills in terms of when you're possibly cooking and baking with your child. So here we've sorted the words by nouns. So nouns being pans, spatula, pot, spoon. We also have some action words like pour, mix, shake, roll. We can be talking about the concepts in terms of empty, full, inside, outside the oven, big, small, first, next, and last. All of these things can be found in terms of our everyday activities when we think about building those oral language skills, which are really the foundation for our literacy skills. Next slide, please. I talked about using digital technology. The TDSB also offers a virtual library that families can use that connects students, educators, and families with diverse and trustworthy resources to support inquiry, literacy, as well as global competencies. Next slide, please. We also have our TDSB Family Caregivers website. Here you will find tips to support literacy at home, looking at building skills in oral language, reading, and writing. The site offers practical suggestions as well as translation guides for families to use. Next slide, please. On that site, you will also find our early years family literacy site, our early years family literacy calendar, which includes a collection of activities that families may engage in during the school year to support literacy development in our youngest learners. The calendar has been distributed to all families and caregivers of kindergarten students and can be found in our digital form on our parents and caregivers website. Next slide, please. The Toronto Public Library is also a great place to find fun and educational activities for children. The Toronto Public Library website is for families and children to discover great books, get homework help, enjoy fun activities, and much, much more. Next slide, please. That will conclude our presentation.